Cashflow Diary Podcast, Episode 12.
Congratulations, you showed up. Give yourself a high five in celebration of your success. Welcome to the Cashflow Diary, where new and experienced investors come to take confident action towards their goals. Your host is a family man, a real estate entrepreneur, investor, coach, and instructor. As a master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow 101 game, he's inspired many to begin their journey into creating cash flow for themselves and their family. And now, here he is to offer you the tools required to earn the income desired. Your cash flow coach, Jay Massey.
Well, hello out there. It's time for yet another episode of the Cashflow Diary. Hopefully, for those of you joining us, if this is your first time or 51st time, actually couldn't be your 51st time yet unless you've seen us live at some of our other events. Welcome back. Glad that you are indeed here. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of do what we did last episode. We're going to have some live and unplugged from Chicago part 2 so that you can hear a little bit more of what happened during that 2-day training. And hopefully you can gain some more knowledge and insights from that as well. Before we go there, let's talk about your free ebook that you have available to you. It's currently called Investing Made Easier Wholesaling. I started my career as a wholesaler, simply buying property at a discount and selling it at a discount, which was great for me. It's a great way to get started. I've got some tips, some tricks, some things inside this book that will help you get started in your wholesaling career. And here's the fun part. For those of you who are already on the list, you know this, but for those of you who are hearing this for the first time, if you get and download that book, again, at no cost to you, you are also going to be invited to an exclusive webinar where I will be answering your questions from the book or anything that you have as it relates to wholesaling and real estate. You will be getting that invitation soon. So make sure that you have us on your whitelist and that the emails go through. Just go over to our website at cashflowdiary.com, place your email in the box, and you can receive your ebook today. Additionally, if this is your first time listening to us, make sure you go over to episode number 1, download that podcast, listen to it. You can understand a little bit about the format of the show, who I am, etc. If any of that's important to you, great. If not, continue listening. As we move on, we will now talk about our cash flow quote for this episode. Comes to us from a name that most of you probably already know, Mr. Jim Rohn. Here it is. If you are not willing to risk the unusual, you will have to settle for the ordinary. I love that. If you're not willing to risk the unusual, you will have to settle for the ordinary. Jim Rohn, actually born Emmanuel James Rohn, has recently passed away. And I say recently, it was back in 2009, but it still feels recent to some of us. An American entrepreneur, author, and motivational speaker. He has a rags to riches story. And he did a lot of personal work in the personal development industry. Some notable names, if you haven't heard of Mr. Jim Rohn, there are some notable names that you probably have heard of that give him credit for their current work. Some of these names are Tony Robbins, Mark Victor Hansen, Jack Canfield, Brian Tracy, and T. Harv Eker. If you've heard of any of those guys credit Mr. Jim Rohn with having significant influence over their life. And it's because of quotes like, if you are not willing to risk the unusual, you will have to settle for the ordinary. Why is that quote important for this particular episode? In the pieces that I'm going to share with you from the Chicago training, you will hear some things that are probably unusual as you get to get my take on real estate, on the market, on just all kinds of things. And again, being willing to risk the unusual means that you are also able to obtain the extraordinary. So hopefully as you listen to this first part here, you'll get some of that and you'll be able to add some of these tools, these techniques, these thought processes to your own ability to do real estate. And here we go.
I got a question.
What's that?
Hi.
Okay, hold on. Let me finish with him.
Sorry.
Where there's chaos, there's cash flow. Period. He just described a situation where there's chaos. I also like the idea of looking at negative clues. What is a negative clue? If everyone is going this way, they're going this way for a reason, It's usually because they're afraid of something that's over here. I want to know what they're afraid of, and then just assess, can it be fixed? And if so, can it be fixed at a profit? The answer is, each building is different. I've had this issue. I had to pay some extra money for asbestos, was the issue. And most of the time, depending on your purchasing price, you can absorb that right into your rehab cost, and it's no big deal. Okay, that's the whole key. The key is, yes, it's an issue, but just because it's an issue doesn't mean, I can't deal with it. It means that's the opportunity. It means they're not willing to work as hard as you may be willing to work, and because you're willing to work harder, you can take advantage of that issue, especially if the real estate's well located, which is usually the case. It's well located, but it's just run down and it needs a lot of attention. And some people just look at that and go, well, what's easier so that I can just make money? When they're only focused on, I can just make money, that's where that decision is made. When they understand their identity and their real estate has a mission and a purpose and a reason behind it, it becomes something completely different, and it just becomes part of the capitalized cost. The key is you got to do the numbers to understand what's it going to cost either per square foot to rehab and rehabilitate this the property. It was a building before, it could be a building again. The question is at what cost? And then you go, well, of all the buildings that I could do, does this one make the most sense? That's it. So I like asbestos. I like mold. I like fire damage. I love water damage. I mean, all of those things are things I look for. What's really funny is that the code enforcement in Memphis, they actually will call me on occasion and say, hey, we got another one we thought you might like, which is code for there's an owner who let their property go down the toilet. Please call them so that we can stop ticketing them for something they're not fixing, because they know that that's what we do. You wonder, how do I get such a bargain basement price? I find the problem. I buy the problem, knowing I'm buying the problem. It only ever becomes a problem when you didn't know about it on the front end. If you didn't know about it and now you've got to deal with it, you got a problem. If you knew about it going in, okay, that's cool. So I don't run away from it. Whether it's 68, most of my buildings are 1968 to 1972. So I deal with this all the time. So much so we just have standard procedures and we don't even worry about it.
Is there a special reason 68, 72?
Well, down in Memphis, that's when the C-class apartments were built. That's just when they were built. And I have nothing else other than that. It's where I can find the vacant building that is infill development that has a whole bunch of highly leveraged other buildings around it.
C-class meaning?
Got it. We will get to that. Asset class. Okay. Yeah, class and demographics. We will get to that. That list right there, sir, is going to be very, very important for you. But it means the lower end of town, typically the forgotten part of town, usually the section of town where people like me grow up. Does that make sense? You thinking of some areas now? Maybe? No? Not yet? Soon. Okay. In every geographic area, they're just built in different time frames. In Memphis, that just happens to be between 1968 and 72. So it wasn't like I was targeting that year, but we'll talk about it. You could target that year for a completely different reason.
What about houses in designated floodplains?
I'm sorry, say again?
What about structures in designated floodplains?
What about them?
Are they on your list?
On my list?
Yeah. Or do you?
Not really. But they wouldn't. I don't remove them because they're in a floodplain. Again, where there's chaos, there's cash flow. That's a negative indicator. Someone would look at that and go, oh my God, it's in a floodplain, run. Well, okay, when's the last time it flooded? I don't know. Well, let's ask a few more questions, okay? Yeah, well, 3 weeks ago, then all right, maybe that means there's not going to be a flood for a while. So we have a window. So it depends on how you look at it, okay? And then it becomes how frequently does it flood. Now, if it's every 3 weeks, you better move quick, right? But if it's, if it flooded 3 weeks ago, but it hadn't flooded before then for 100 years, okay, then maybe. It's no big deal. And especially if it flooded 3 weeks ago, they're probably looking to sell it cheap. You know, that could be an indication. I told you, I love water damage. Water damage rocks. I mean, you can get stuff cheap. And then right now, especially right now, labor is still cheap. The issue, and here's the thing that's squeezing all of us, whether you realize it or not, is the actual material cost. My material costs are changing drastically. So much so that even green ideas become cost effective because the non-green alternative is becoming almost the same price in some of the things that I'm doing. But that's just that's an economic thing. I can't control that. I can just try to do my best to be ahead of it because that's not going to change, you know. But labor right now is still inexpensive, so use it to the best of your ability. Does that make sense? Okay.
I have another question.
Yes.
I have a passion for Garfield Park, which
For
is
what?
Garfield Park.
What is that?
It's a neighborhood in Chicago that is beautiful. They have a beautiful conservatory, but it's full of gangbangers and drug dealers and all
Okay.
kinds of, but I love it there because it's just a beautiful neighborhood.
Okay.
So I'm very interested in investing there, and everybody's like, oh, no, don't do that because, you know, while you're working on the building, they're going to get in there, they're going to steal the copper pipes out of your walls, and all this stuff's going to happen. So
Yeah.
since you work in those kind of neighborhoods, what do you do to keep people from you know, squatting in your properties?
Do you have a gun permit?
No.
Figured that would be a fun topic here, right? That would be a fun topic here. Okay, well, outside of the gun permit, who does have a gun permit that you could use? Who said it? Exactly. He said the police department.
Right, but they're pretty busy.
They are. However, they're too busy to handle a small problem. But what if you presented a large-scale solution to them? What if you were the person that, say, bought a street, the whole street, in this neighborhood? That's a bigger issue for them. Might there be a politician or two who would be interested in helping and would love to take credit for their private-public partnership of cleaning up that particular section of town? The answer is yes, there's probably at least one. I can see it on your face.
I was driving around looking for the best streets, when actually I should have been driving around looking for the worst streets.
Negative indicators are cool.
I'm going to take another drive through Garfield.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not about just you. It's other people have an interest. Trust me, you're not the only one who knows that section of town is beautiful, but this. Well, if you can clean up the but this, what would you need? So ask yourself this question. What would I need to make this into what you see it being? Well, I would need this, I would need this, and I would need this. Then you ask yourself, well, how could I get the city to help me with this, this, and this? What would it take to be that interesting to them? It would take something big, newsworthy, right? Find the largest apartment building in that section. Fix it. I promise you can have such a completely different impact because they care. They're not going to care about one single family house. They're like, yeah, that house is burning too. What's the big deal, you know? But you say, well, we're housing, I don't know, 200 voters. You might want to help me. It's a different story. And suddenly the police is there. Often. The patrol route changes. Whatever it takes. Make sense? Yep.
All right, and welcome back. So hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of piece, but let me expand on some additional information that was given there. You may have heard me say things like chaos and cash flow. Where there's chaos, there's cash flow. One of the things that we must remember as a real estate investor is we are problem solvers. So that's what a business owner is. We call ourselves real estate investors, but we're really a business owner that just happens to use real estate to conduct our business. And that's what all business owners do, right? Is that they solve problems. So what you're looking for is you're looking for chaos. And I'm sure that may be a new way of looking at things for you. But if it's not, that's good. That means you're already on the right track. But being focused on finding problems is something that you and I must do in order for us to be the linchpin, the necessary pieces, the cogs in the wheel, as you will soon see, the cogs in the wheel that can indeed solve the problems. So let's get over to our question from last week. Last week, the question was, what is the name of the minimum rate of return on your investment? What is the name for the minimum rate of return that you're willing to accept on your investment? Now, this is a number that, again, that is very important for you to understand so that you can eliminate looking at certain deals faster. So with that being said, the answer is hurdle rate. If you've never heard of it, that simply is the minimum rate of return you're looking on your investment. Now, we haven't gone into information to define the different types of rates of return. However, let's just say, for example, that you know that you would like to earn and I'll just pick a random number, 4%. Say 4% is what you would like to earn. All right, so you look at your CD, and if your CD or mutual fund or whatever isn't paying 4%, but you now want a minimum of 4%, what you're saying is your hurdle rate is 4%. So any deal that does not earn at least 4% is not something that you're looking for. Now, I'm not saying 4% is a good number. I'm not saying it's a bad number. What I am saying is you must understand your hurdle rate. This week's question: what are the 3 types of income you can earn, and which of the 3 potentially has the least base tax rate, even after the Obamacare changes in the U.S.? So what are the 3 types of income, and even after Obamacare, which of those 3 types of income has the least base tax rate? That is your challenge to understand and to figure out. And then most importantly, once you know this, please begin to pursue this type of income so that you can have whole lots of it. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get you back to the next part of the training from Chicago. And I know some of you are probably wondering when this training was. How did you find out? Again, go over to the website, cashflowdiary.com. If you look under the Meet J tab, we often put our events there so that you have the ability to find us. And if you want to attend those types of things, that's great. If not, no big deal. We'll keep coming to you from the podcast style as we're doing right now. Anyway, here we go.
Here we go. E simply means there are 4 ways, 4 people in business, especially in the U.S. They are E, an employee. That particular person trades time for dollars. There is a direct 1-to-1 relationship. I work 4 hours. I get paid $20 per hour. Therefore, I made $80. Ta-da! Direct 1-to-1 relationship. The self-employed or small business owner, he or she trades specialized knowledge, specific service, etc., but is still usually related to a clock. These are typically your doctors, attorneys, and people with a license fall into this particular category. Financial planners, this is where I was, right? We trade a specific skill set or knowledge, still usually tied to a clock in some way, and it's things like I charge $250 an hour, etc., things of that number. Then you have the business owner or big business owner. They typically have, I call them 500 units or more of producing income, but what they really own is a system that produces income whether they are there or not, whether they are awake or not, and honestly, whether they're alive or not. The system continues to produce money. It's one of the reasons I love rental property, because today, what's today? Okay, this works better usually during the 1st, but oh well. On June 1st, I will not be in Memphis. I won't be in Memphis. So let me ask you this. Who's going to collect the rent? You. No. I am not physically going to any doors collecting any checks, am I? Who is? The property manager, also known as not me. Today, when something breaks and a tenant has an issue, who's going to get that call? Also known as not me. Tomorrow, when someone is looking for a new place to stay, and we have a vacancy, because we have a vacancy right now, who's going to be placing that ad and showing the property? Someone, not me. Whose money does the bank account end up in? Yours. I like that. I like that. And here's the interesting thing that I like about it. That happens no matter where I am. If I die, still happens. If I change addresses, money chases me down. I like that. You know? That's fun. Because here's the key. We must learn to own and control the means of production. That's what a system is. It's just an idea. Is renting property a new idea to you? Is that like new? No, not at all. Not at all. What is new is how it's done in this environment. See, what's very unique about information is that it only has value relative to its timeliness. If I was here telling you how to do real estate in an economic environment like it was, say, in the 1980s, would that be helpful for you today? Not really. There are some things that are very similar, but other things that are not. And because I can share with you instances of what I've done this week to do deals, therefore the information is relevant, and that's exactly what you have access to. The means of production of what works today. That's what's key. That's why I like systems. They're cool. But how many of us, when we were in high school, kindergarten, college, whatever, were trained on how to execute, create, and run a system? Anyone? Or were you taught how to get a job? You know? You didn't go to an entrepreneurial fair. You went to a job fair, right? You were taught how to make a resume, though, and you're still not good at it. Right? Because other entrepreneurs, you know what they did? They made a resume service, and you're like, whew, thank you. Because that's hard, you know? And then there's the I investor. That person, he or she uses money to go out there and come back with more friends. They think, simple as that. Here's the unique thing. This person, the investor, you know what they're looking for? A system to put their money behind. The self-employed person, you know what they're typically looking for? A client who needs legal representation. The employee, you know what they're looking for? A job. Is there any person who might have all of those things? The business owner has all of those needs. They need the legal representation or the specialized knowledge. They need the funds from the investor, and they provide the job to the employee. They're the central cog in the wheel to make it all work. But we're not training people to become business owners. We're training them to look for a job. Now, you guys know economics, supply and demand. If we teach a whole bunch of people how to look for jobs but don't teach anyone how to create any, what might we run out of? Wow. Does that sound like any headline you may have read recently? Just saying. And that's what I like about understanding how cash flows. Is by being that person that's in the middle, you're the one who makes everything happen. I get excited because when I buy a building, I know that we're going to create a minimum of 4 to 7 jobs for every door that we acquire. That's fun. Do you think a mayor is interested in stuff like that? Yeah. Yes. That's why going big and trying to buy a street or a whole subdivision, that's why they get interested. That's jobs. Things that their job is dependent on. And you become the solution provider. Okay? See, as an employee, you have a job. As the self-employed person, the job has you, right? Where are realtors found on most Saturdays? Open house, right? But not at home, right? What's that? They could be on the golf course, but are they on the golf course for fun, or is it business? Still, it's probably still business. That's the point. If you don't go to work, you don't eat. That's what I found out when my wife got sick. I wasn't taught that before. They were saying, hey, be a financial planner. You can make a lot of money. And I was like, well, that sounded good. Let's do that. They didn't share with me that if you don't work, you may not be able to eat. And here's how this could play out for you. Your wife could get sick and you could have a problem. We don't know what you're going to do, but that's not our problem. We weren't taught from a financial perspective how to make better decisions, which is why I make the decisions I make today. Is because I want to make sure that if something like that happens, because am I guaranteed health for myself or any of my children or my spouse? No, not guaranteed anything. But one of the most painful lessons that I learned during that situation, you can examine whether this is true for you or not, is that the Calvary wasn't coming. There was no government program. Obama wasn't cutting me any check to help me survive. And I had to figure it out. Had I been taught that earlier, I would have made different decisions. I know now. So we make different decisions. Okay? What ends up happening is that 90% of the world's population lives on one side and 10% lives on the other. But what also happens is that a very significant portion of the world's wealth is on one side and is on the other. And I guess more popularly today, we call these guys 1%ers and these guys 99%ers, right? That's what's more popular today. I have issue with that. But, you know, it is what it is. And here's also what tends to happen. Sometimes the people living on the 90% side are given an opportunity to switch sides. And then they look at it and they go, well, that's just too good to be true. I've never seen anyone do it. And therefore they say, it must not be able to happen. Well, you haven't seen anyone do it because you haven't been surrounded by them. Because they're too busy doing it to stop and talk to you and listen to your complaining about how it's not happening for you. Because you're not willing to spend a Friday afternoon and a Saturday listening to what it takes to get it done and being surrounded by people doing it. That requires sacrifice, time, and money. All that other stuff is free. And we tend to take the path of least resistance and want to blame someone else for it. Am I right or right?
Yes. Right.
Examine for yourself which side you would choose to live on. Then learn to develop the habits and characteristics of people who live on the side you want. Do what they do. You don't have to do it the way they do it, but do what they do for your reasons. And you might find yourself on the other side of that equation one day.
Okay, here's what we want to do now. I just want to give you some final thoughts on some of the stuff that you've just heard. And here's a thought. No one who has ever made it, whatever that means to you, you can put that made it in quotes. Whoever has made it has done so alone. So no one who has ever made it, whatever that definition or word means to you, has done so alone. Usually they have had at least one mentor, instructor, or teacher that comes into their life to make the difference. My question to you, something to think about, something to ponder until we meet again. Who are you listening to?
Thank you for investing your time with Jay Massey and the Cash Flow Diary. When you have a moment, please visit iTunes and leave a positive comment about the show. And go now to our website, cashflowdiary.com, to take advantage of our free business building course, Cash Flow Foundation. Gain the knowledge, understanding, and skill that will teach you how to never need a job again. Until next time.